Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are once again having a look at the Covert leak stuff, and this time it's time to do Naval. We've had a look at aviation, we've had a look at ground, now it's Naval's turn. And there is a bunch of stuff which has been leaked. We're going to start off with America, which has kind of a theme to it. The first one is the USS Charles F. Adams. This is the DD-952, as it was known in the leak, but also known as the DDG-2, which was before it was actually launched. So it technically has two classifications. The Charles F. Adams was the lead ship of her class of guided missile destroyers. This was actually the first type of destroyer from the US which was specifically designed around missiles. So instead of being a vehicle which was retrofitted with missiles, whether for testing or just, making stuff more modern, this one was built with missiles in mind. It actually succeeded the Forrest Sherman class set of destroyers, and this one was packed to the punch with a bunch of different things, starting off with a million types of different radars, missile fire control radars, gunfire radars, sonar, and also just standard air search radars, but its armament is where it really comes to shine. First of all, it had one set of RUR-5 ASROC launchers, and basically this is a anti-submarine missile system, which is really fun. It also had a bunch of torpedo tubes, which it had on it too. Then it had for guns, two 5-inch standard guns that are very similar to the ones that you see already on a bunch of destroyers in the US tree, and then of course the major system on it, which would get people interested, the missiles, which are designed for different roles. So of course you have the ASROC for the submarines, you also have the Mark 11 missile launcher or the Mark 13 single-arm missile launcher. Both of these were designed to carry the RIM-24 Tartar missile or the RIM-66, or, of course, the Harpoon, which is the anti-ship missile, with stuff like the RIM-66 being more of the surface-to-air missile. So this vehicle could be kitted out with a bunch of different missiles, whether you want to do anti-air, anti-ship, or anti-anything, which is pretty cool. It was in service in the 60s and served until the 90s, but unfortunately was scrapped in 2021. There was a lot of thought around trying to make this a museum ship, but unfortunately funding kind of fell through, and it was therefore scrapped. Its notable parts is it was involved in the Cuban Missile Crisis. It also helped recovery operations for the Mercury 8 mission, which is quite fun, and also at the same time served pretty well until the 90s. The next one is the Forrest Sherman, and this one's kind of interesting because there's two technically Forrest Shermans, but this is the predecessor. This is the DD-931. There's also the DDG-98, which is a much more modern destroyer, or guided missile destroyer specifically, but instead we're looking at the DD-931. This one was the predecessor to the USS Charles F. Adams, and it was commissioned into service in the mid-50s, served until the 80s, and this one is more standard. I would probably put it out there. Like, it's more standard compared to what you'd be used to in terms of War Thunder, so it's more of a gun destroyer instead of a missile destroyer. This vehicle was backed up by an incredibly good targeting system, but it had access to three 5-inch single cannons on it. It also had two dual sets of 3-inch cannons too, which were more AA guns. It had the Hedgehog launchers, which are on a lot of these post-World War II destroyers, and also it had some torpedo tubes in two triple mounts later on. The vehicle itself didn't really ever have any access to missiles or anything like that. That was obviously left to the Charles F. Adams and more vehicles like that. So this one was much more of a gun destroyer, and therefore didn't last as long in service, I think is basically the way to put it. The vehicle did serve out nearly 30 years though, which is very good for a naval vehicle, but yeah, it didn't have access to the crazy weaponry that I feel like people would be more interested in. The next one is pretty cool. It's Marfa, which is the PCE-842 class patrol craft. This vehicle is a one of its own. It's the only type of vessel which was ever designated as a patrol craft escort in the United States Naval Forces. The PCE is one of those that was also produced in quite large numbers. They had 68 of these, and also it was exported to a bunch of different nations after the war, and obviously used a lot by the United States. And the whole point of this type of class was to try and fill a gap in the needs that the Americans had. Basically, the PC design was derived from some minesweepers to try and help out some of the submarine chasers that were being used in anti-submarine warfare. But the major thing about the PCE is it was a large vessel, but with a much, much less powerful engine, meaning that it was more designed to actually look after stuff like convoy escort duties and also open ocean activities. So these smaller machines, which had actually faster engines or bigger engines, were more designed to do coastal patrol stuff. So this was filling a gap, so therefore destroyer escorts and destroyers could go and do their own thing, and this craft, the PCE, could do the escorts and some of the more open ocean stuff, which was seen as still very useful. So this one was a stopgap, basically between the classic minesweeper and also the submarine chaser and the larger machines like the destroyer escorts and destroyers. Kind of reminds me of the Alaska in a way, when it's kind of like a stopgap between different ideas. So yeah, this was unique to America. The vehicle is incredibly slow compared to its predecessors, and it's huge. It has a 2,000 brake horsepower as propulsion, but it only goes a speed of 29.1 kilometers an hour. It was 850 long tons and also had access to one 3-inch gun, 6 Bofors in twin mounts, 4 20mm, and also a Hedgehog anti-submarine launcher, and also depth charges too. This vehicle was built a lot and also served a bunch of different navies, and did have some different configurations on it too, depending on the one that you're looking at. Some of them had more 20mm, others had, more setups for the guns, and a lot of them actually are still preserved. Well, a lot of them, I should say. There's 2 of them which are still around. But in general, what you find from this machine is something that is unique, which I think is kind of cool. The interesting thing about Marfa as well is this one served in the United States Navy from 1944 to 1955, and then it was transferred to South Korea, where on the 18th of December 1961, it was actually sunk by North Korean shore battery fire in January of 1967. So this one has a much more interesting history than many. It also has some 50 cals on it, which are kind of interesting. So this vehicle could easily actually have a place in War Thunder, along with a lot of the other PCEs from the history. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.